Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. This is Yeshayahu, Isaiah 47, and this is Saul Weinreb, your host for the podcast. In chapter 46, in the last chapter that we studied, God differentiated between those people that were arrogant, that had faith in their own creations, faith in the gods of gold and silver, and that ultimately those gods would fail them in the end. And that only He, the true God, the creator of the world, the one who can be relied upon and can predict the future and can carry it out and will carry us from the beginning to the end, only He can carry the people and redeem them ultimately in the future redemption. One might then be tempted to ask the following question. What if you are one of those peoples who are being successful in this current world, pre-redemption world, the world of gold and silver, the world of power, the world where one worships the creations of his own hands, the world where the powerful nations are in charge? Well, what if you are that powerful nation? What if you are that king? Won't you look at God and say, what are you talking about? You're telling me that this is a failure? This isn't a failure. I have it great. This is awesome. Well, this is the question that God is about to address. He's going to turn to those people and tell them as follows. Let's do verse number 1. Redi ushevi al ofor betulat bat Bavel. The example that we had in the last chapter, and the example that repeatedly of a nation of arrogance, a nation that ruthlessly ruled over many other nations of the world, was the nation of Babylon. And God is telling the betulat, the young girl or the virgin of Babylon, sit down on the dirt, get off your throne, get off your big chair that you use as you sit above all others. Shavi la'aretz, sit on the ground. Ein kisei, your throne is no longer bat kastim, you daughter of the Chaldeans, which were a people closely allied with and with the Babylonians. You will no longer be able to call yourselves, and no one will be able to call you anymore. No one will call you anymore the one who lives in luxury, the soft and luxurious one. Because right now you may be living in that luxury, but that's not reliable. That's not the way of the world. That isn't how it works, God says, and you know that, because you know that kingdoms come and go. And what's going to happen? Kechi rechaim, you're going to take the rechaim, meaning the the mill, the grinder that grinds the wheat, v'tachani kemach, and grind up the wheat. This is something that the lowly peasants would have to do. But you, as the queen, the princess, referring to the royal classes, you think you're wealthy now. One day you're going to turn around and you're going to be the pauper. You're going to be the poor man, grinding the wheat. Galit samasech, remove the veil that you as the princess or the queen wears over. You're going to have to take it off and have your face burnt by the sun like everyone else. Chespi sovel. Take off the sovel is the train that flows, the long dress that flows behind the princess. You're going to have to take it down. Gali shok, you're going to have to pull up your pants and your legs will be revealed. Irina haros, as you cross through rivers and wade across rivers in the mud like everyone else. Tigaler vosech, your nakedness will be revealed. Gam tiraecher posech, your embarrassment will be shown. You'll no longer be able to hide behind the veil of royalty. It doesn't work that way. Nakomekach, because I will take revenge. Velo efga adam, and I will not let anyone stop me, God says. In other words, this is the way of the world. You know this. You know that this is the way of the world. That just because you're sitting high and lofty now doesn't mean you're going to sit high and lofty tomorrow. So don't think that the fact that you're being what appears to be successful now means that the way that you're following, the life that you're living, is a life of truth. It's simply a life that you're doing by taking advantage of others unfairly. But go aleinu, Our Redeemer, say the people of Israel in verse 4. Adonai Tzivaot Shemo. His name is the God of hosts, Kadosh Yisrael. He's the Holy One of Israel. He's the one who stays with us the whole time. Shivi Dumam. So sit silent. God again turns towards the people of Babylon. Sit silent, sit quiet. Uvo'i bachoshech. If you remember back in chapter 21, we mentioned this in the last chapter as well, verse 11, which is Yeshayahu is really referring back to what he said then when he said, Masad Duma, the burden of Duma, the people who are quiet, referring to the people of Edom. This was 21 verse 11. Elai Korei Misir Shomer Mamilaila. What is this? The burden of the one who guards us, God, Mami Laila, where is he in the darkness in the night? And remember, we saw before how we interpreted the terms of darkness referring to the questions, the mysteries of God. So you will sit quiet. You will keep going on in the darkness because you're not going to recognize the light. You're going to be feeling around in the dark. So go ahead, live that life. They will no longer call you the powerful, one of the kings, or Geveret, meaning in this case the wife or the mistress, of the kingdoms, the loftiest ones. Bat Kastim, because they were almost like a mistress to the Babylonians, which were the main kingdom. Kastim being the Chaldeans. But then one may ask, well, what about the people of Israel? You're telling me these are what the Babylonians, so to speak, are now going to say to God. Well, yes, it's true. We go up, we go down. We're powerful one day, we're not powerful the next day. But that happened to the Jewish people too. Supposedly, you're telling me that you were with them all along. They also went up and down. They were in their own nation, and now they're here in our nation, suffering under the Babylonian exile. And now we persecute them, say the Babylonians about the Jews. So are you that reliable? So God says, yes, Kotzapti alami, it is true that I was angry at my nation. Chilalti nachlasi, and I gave my people, I took the holiness away, meaning I treated them as if they were defiled, my people. And I did, as a punishment, I gave them in your hands. But God says it wasn't me that made them suffer. Lo samta lahem rachamim. It's you. You're the one that decided not to have mercy on them. Don't blame me for the suffering that you meted out upon the Jewish people. You are so cruel to them that you placed your yokes and made even elderly people work hard. This is something that you chose to do. You didn't have to treat them bad. You chose to do that. This is so basic, so basic. God says, yes, I stepped away, which was a punishment bad enough. But that doesn't mean that human beings have to choose to cause other people suffering. The suffering itself was still being caused by those people. Vatom, remember, as we had several times when we had the earlier in Yeshayahu, the Shirat HaKerem, the Song of the Vineyard, where God says, I removed the fence, but then it's the nations of the world that decided to come and invade the vineyard. God's punishment was not meting it out himself. God's punishment was removing the fence by stepping away. But the actual punishment was perpetrated by those other people. Vatomri, and God says to Babylon, and you said, La'olam ehye givaret, you thought you're always going to be the mistress, you're always going to be the big one. Ad lo samte lecha al libech, to the extent that you didn't even think about what you were doing, you didn't think about the evil that you were perpetrating. Lo zachart acharita, you didn't even think about what the results were going to be. You didn't think that one day you might have to answer for your deeds. Vi'ata, and now that this is how you decided to behave, don't ask me, God says, well, you didn't take care of the Jewish people. Look, they're suffering, huh? What kind of a question is that? You're the one that's causing the suffering, not me. That's what God says to the Babylonians. So now God says, Shemizos, listen to me. Listen up now. Adina hayoshevet levetach. You, a soft one, you think you have confidence that you're going to survive forever. Ha'omra bilvava, the one you're saying to yourself in your heart, aniva afsi od, that I am going to last forever. Lo eshev almana, I will never be a widow. V'lo edashechol, and I will never be childless. When we talk about a woman in this imagery sitting as a widow, remember, in those days that meant a woman that lost the primary source of her support, which was her husband. A woman that has no children, that means she's losing her future. So when this is a reference to the Babylonians thinking, we will always have our source of support, which is our strength, our power, our gold, our silver, right? And we will always have a future by raising our children in this, and as Babylonians that are the bosses over everyone else. But God says, no, these two things, your loss of support, you will be widowed, and your loss of a future, you will lose your children, because I will exile your nation. Kitumam bo'u alayich. They will come upon you completely, 100%, like complete and total. Berov kishafayich, with all of your magic. Bi'atzmat chavarayich ma'od, and all of your as the Torah says, using language chover chaver, meaning someone who casts spells, right? You have all of these magicians and so on that you think are going to help you. They're not going to do squat. They're not going to do anything for you. They're not going to save you. If we look back, well, let me read a little bit further. Vativ techi b'ra'asech, and you had faith in your evil. You thought that your strength, your wickedness, and your power over others was going to keep you going. Amart ein ra'ani, and you said to yourself, no one's watching me. Nobody cares. Chachmasech v'datech hi shovavasech. And it was your wisdom, and this is wisdom in quotation marks, v'datech, and your knowledge, these things, these magic things, all your ideas and stuff, you thought that this was going to save you. Right? These are actually the things that shovavasech, that turned you away, that led you in the wrong direction. Vatomri b'libech, and you said in your heart, anivi apsiod, it was that arrogance that you kept saying to your heart, oh, don't worry, I'm going to live forever, we're going to be fine. Uva alayich ra'ah, and it's going to come upon you, this evil, lo teidi'i shachra, you will have no way to, shachar here referring to divining, or also another form of black magic. Batipol alayach chova, and disaster will fall upon you. Lo tuchli kapra, kind of disaster which you won't be able to buy your way out of, from the language of kofer. Vatavo alayach pitom sho'ah lo tedai, and suddenly there will come upon you a sho'ah, which nowadays we translate as Holocaust or ruin or just ultimate absolute destruction, lo tedai, that you will have never seen before, you will have never known of such punishment. And you'll have no way of getting yourself out of it. This should remind us, and as this is the third time, I think, in this chapter alone that I'm referring back to ideas that Yeshayahu referenced in other contexts in the first part of Yeshayahu, again demonstrating unity of authorship. But let's go back to Perek Beis, the second chapter Isaiah 2, verses 6 through 8, where Yeshayahu brings out the same concept, that when one, with arrogance comes belief in magic and so on. Chapter, I'm just reading where it says, Ki notashta amucha beit Yaakov ki mal'u mikedem v'onanim kaplishtem. You're full of all of these ideas of onanim, also different kinds of necromancy and incantations that you learn from outside. God criticizes, Vatimale artso kesef bizohav in ketosov, and you went ahead and you replaced it with the idols of silver and so on. Again, we saw over there the connection between sorcery and magic and arrogance and worldly power. As we continue here, Yeshayahu continues to criticize this, and he says, Imdina. This is Yeshayahu speaking in the name of God. Imdina, stand up, b'chavarayach u'vorov kishafayach, with all of your spells and all of your magicians. Ba'asher yagata min urayach, those things that you have been in all of your history from the days of yore, in the history of Babylon, you've been busy with all of this stuff. Ulai tuchli ho'il, ulai tarotzi. Maybe you can use all that magic to help when God's justice comes. God's kind of joking here. Is it going to work for you? No, it's not going to work. It's not going to do anything. Nil ace, rather, God says in the next verse 13, Nil ace with all of your ideas and your silly magic, nil ace, you're exhausted, you're useless, you're helpless. Ya'amduna v'yoshech hovrei shamayim. Will all of those stargazers that were predicting things with the star formations, Hachozim b'kochavim, that looked into the stars, modiim lechadashim, and were saying what's going to happen every month. B'asher yavo elayich, they're going to tell you what's going to happen this month and this day based on this star and that star. These people are now useless when God's wrath comes. These ideas, these silly ideas, these magical ideas are completely useless and meaningless now. Hinei hayu, so useless, God says in verse 14, Hinei hayu chekash esrafasam. Their predictions are just like straw that just get burnt up in fire. Lo yatzilu et nafsham me'ad lehava. All of these silly magical ideas will not save their souls when the flames come. Ein gachelet lachmam. There's nothing left for them to warm their bread. Ur lashevet negdo, no fire to be warmth, but rather the fire of destruction is what they're going to have. Kain hayulach asher yagata. All of those things that you busied yourself with, those things that you called wisdom, chachmasech, right? The languages that he used, your chachmasech v'datech, all of that. God says in the last verse, Kain hayulach asher yagata, those things asher yagata that you wasted your time with have become to you like I just described, like that flame that just destroys you, like nothing. So charayach min urayach. These are the things that you busied yourself in business from the time you were young. Ish le'evro ta'u. Each person has wandered off, lost. Ta'u, lost on a path, in his own path, each person wandering off in a different direction. Ein moshiach, and there's no one here to save you. This is God's answer to the people of Babylon, who think that because they're rich, wealthy, and powerful now, and they have all of these magical ideas and notions, that they're somehow going to save themselves. Thank you for paying attention to Yeshayahu chapter 47. Looking forward to studying chapter 48 together.